just becomes impossible to operate, right? And so, you know, I've certainly met a lot of resistance that I wouldn't have met if I hadn't sort of gone down this path. But I'm like, I don't even understand how people play the goddamn game anymore, right? And I guess I'm trying to figure it out. Like, you know, you guys probably know I started doing on Wednesdays. I'm trying to do a show that is not explicit, right? And so I'm trying to figure out how to sort of operate in that realm of like, well, I'm not going to point out the obvious racial problem here by saying it explicitly, but like I can't even, you know, these guys actually try not to think about it, right? Like I don't even understand how you can look at the world today and say like, all right, well, race has nothing to do with this. Let's try to assign some other cause to it. I can't even process that thought pattern anymore.
Well, there's a lot of problems with that. I think one of the things that you pointed out too is that the host of that show doesn't have to think about it, considering his regional placement, for that matter.
Well, exactly, yeah. So he's like, I don't care about race. I'm like, yeah, why would you, right? You're a radio show host in New Hampshire who never has to come into contact with any of these people. Believe me, you know, guys who live in cities where they're getting flooded with this crap, they start noticing it really fucking fast. And you know, I try to like get them to even acknowledge so much as, you know, hey, Ian, you know, we're in New Hampshire. It's 94% white. If like we took all of your neighbors and sent them to Harlem and took Harlem and put them in your neighbors' houses, like, what do you think could happen to the quality of your life? And like, what do you think would happen to Keene and what do you think would happen in Harlem, right? And he's like, well, you know, there's other things at work, you know, that they were living in this place. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. Magic dirt. All right, fine. Fantastic, Ian.
It's amazing how regressive and anti-science this kind of like new Marxist racial doctrine is. And I'm actually doing a reading of Rockwell's White Power. I'm on chapter 3 right now, which is actually going to be out on my BitChute channel and my YouTube channel.
It's an excellent read.
It's fucking incredible. And chapter 3 in particular is prophetic and illuminating, like to the point where it could, if you take all the cultural timely references out, it could be written today and it would have the same exact relevance. And he talks about the idea of people getting so removed from the natural habitat in which we came to evolve and understand nature as not having any equality in it whatsoever. Naturally forming, that is. So when we started to move away from nature, move into cities and towns, you know, and started to live in kind of an artificial environment, you know, we started to get removed from just being around nature and observing the inequality that existed in it on a daily basis. Like no farmer back in the 1800s would say that all cows are equal or that all chickens are equal.
Right.
But a farmer today, or not a farmer today, but your basic urbanite today, invariably almost, will say that all people are equal because they have absolutely no connection to the natural world and like animals and forests and, you know, the sheer inequality that naturally exists.
It was funny. There was a day that somebody on a caller into Free Talk Live was complaining about laws that pertain to pit bulls, right? But like, you know, as a matter of fact, my brother had a pit bull when we were younger, and he was an awesome dog, and I can't have a dog in this apartment, and I want to move almost just so I can get one. But anyway, so they were talking about laws pertaining to pit bulls, and Ian goes, "Yeah, it's stupid. It's like dog racism." You know, so I felt compelled. I had to call in, and I was like, "Yeah, you know, it actually is dog racism." And as it turns out, Ian, pit bulls are in fact different from chihuahuas, you might have noticed, and that it's not entirely different from different categories of human being, right? And like this kind of thing ensued, and he actually went so far as to say that like purebred dogs are actually worse than mutts, that you have more problems with them or whatever. And I mean, you know, if you're inbreeding your dogs, like that can absolutely happen, of course, but he actually tried to take the position that, you know, dogs that are bred with absolutely no care for the breed whatsoever are actually superior than the dogs that you would pay hundreds of dollars for at a breeder. And I was like, I can't even believe that I'm actually you're saying this in public and you're not embarrassed.
These people purport to be the most pro-science progressive people who have, like, you know, the supposedly empirical way of looking at the world and gleaning scientific information and putting that to their, you know, established worldview of things. And it is basically, they are the equivalent of the people who burned like heretics, like, and persecuted Galileo back in his time for simply going against the dogma and stating the truth. And it's like a reverse situation. It's like a reversal. Like those people that like tout science as their reasoning for their beliefs are thoroughly anti-science when it comes to the reality of biological determinism. Like they're literally regressive, because people knew instinctively 200 years ago and prior to that, through all of human history, that there were differences between peoples as there were differences in subspecies of animals.
Right.
Yeah.
It's race is the one thing that we understood better 100 years ago than we do today, right? Yeah. And it's so scary. Now, this is something that really, I've remarked lately. I'm sort of trying to regain my composure, right? Like when I first really started to understand race as a subject matter. I mean, I grew up in New York. I couldn't help but be exposed to diversity and stuff, right? I knew that these people were different from me, but I just didn't care. It didn't seem like it mattered that much, right? And as I became aware of the full gravity of the situation, I became so angry, and it really came across for anybody who's listening to the Radical Agenda at the time. I was sort of starting to regain my composure, right? But it's one of these things that that somebody could. But when I was exposed to the information, I was just like, okay, that's the information, right? And as I've tried to tell other people about it, I was just kind of like, I figured that most people were in the same spot, that they just never been exposed to this before, And as I start trying to explain it to people, the mind is so repelled by it, right? It's almost like they know that the how should we say this? The trusted flaggers are going to come after them, right? And they just know this subconsciously, so they're like, I must not know, I must not process what you're telling me, which is why I think it's so damn funny that throughout the thing, he tried to call me ignorant at multiple times. I'm like, you're literally telling me that your views are impervious to change and that you are refusing to find out the information that I'm discussing, and you're calling me ignorant. What you're doing is literally the definition of ignorance. You're ignoring the information and you refuse to process it.
And all the while being terrified of the idea that you might be right, and them being pulled into being heretics themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, I'm a heretic. I believe in race.
Well, just to make a point about the Pitbull thing too. I mean, maybe he's just looking at it from the wrong perspective, because I mean, I think we're all aware at this point that despite making up about only 6% of the dog population, so on and so forth,